what is martial law, or why I even chose this topic. And it all started back in September 11th, 2001. I was really influenced by the event that happened, and the word terrorist was the first time I ever heard it. And that word came up a lot as soon as I started Googling it, and it had been reciprocated all globally around the world. But I was curious why I had never heard this word in my classroom or ever used, and it kind of, I felt insecure, because when I was in my class, my teacher had just called us out, and she said, you need to go home, you need to call your parents. And it was at the very moment that the accident had happened, the terrorist attack. And a couple days later, there was actually another attack on the Pentagon. And it said a similar plane that fell on the Pentagon. And although the footage didn't show any pieces of the plane, they continued to say it was, and it became a little suspicious in my mind. So I started doing more research, and ended up finding that there was no evidence of that actually happening, and a lot of conspiracies came up. So I became really curious on a lot of conspiracies, and as some of you might know, I'm really a conspiracy theorist. And due to January 1st of this year, Obama's Act 101-003, I'm actually in suspicion as a terrorist to even present this topic to you. The video will explain why.
If you're seeing this broadcast, you are in a part of the country no longer controlled by the government of the United States.
Training exercises are becoming an increasingly common sight in many U.S. cities. The Department of Homeland Security has spent the past year acquiring more than 1 billion rounds of high-performance ammunition. Do these developments suggest concerns over a potential terrorist attack? Are they preparations for widespread social upheaval? Is there perhaps something even more sinister underway?
And now with the National Defense Authorization Act coming into effect this Thursday, the law that many fear spells the end of American democracy, grants the government and the military unprecedented powers to detain U.S. citizens indefinitely without trial.
Practice in China is not free market. It's not freedom. I mean, they kill their political dissidents. They do bad things to their people that disagree with them. What's going on?
Not support China's government because China's government is the enemy of human rights.
My name is Robert Whitaker, the Tactical Supervisor for El Paso SRT for Homeland Security Investigations. Well, we have our big vehicle out here. It's an armored vehicle. It's an MRAP vehicle. It's mine resistant, ambush protected is what it stands for. That's what we use to deliver our team to high-risk warrant services.
From the East China Sea Fleet of the PLA Navy have arrived in the Western Pacific Ocean to conduct maritime drills. The two warships, Foshan and Huaihua, are first and the second generation missile brigades. The exercise is their first blue water training drill. Earlier, the warships conducted a series of mock exercises during its voyage to the Western Pacific Ocean that covered surveillance and tested nighttime capabilities.
And controversial detentions could soon be commonplace in the U.S.
We are now in a state of martial law and war globally. NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, that Obama has called for and signed, stipulates that even American citizens can now be targeted by the military, picked up, and imprisoned indefinitely without civilian trial, thus throwing out our due process, our habeas corpus clauses. So we are now in the state of martial law. Everything is now creating conditions for a total war state. I mean, McCain called for the whole of America becoming part of the so-called battlefield. America is now a battlefield. The whole earth is a battlefield. What we're trying to do then is create a martial law state using Iran as the terrorist enemy or threat.
And to give all of these agents so much firepower, it really does make you wonder, are they planning on some kind of widespread economic unrest in the U.S.? And worst case scenario is, as you said, they're planning for economic unrest for violent protests or something that requires hollow point ammunition on a wide scale.
And there are a lot of theories as well that there's sort of a connection between DHS and the police forces in this country, particularly in the Occupy Wall Street crackdown. I know DHS agents, it's been confirmed, have been involved in various ways in many of the Occupy movements around the country.
Give you the foothold we need to take our homes back.
I can't.
Yes, you can. Relax. Squeeze. We inherited our freedom. Now it's up to all of us to fight for it.
For them, this is just some place. For us, this is our home.
So, how many of you have actually heard the term martial law? So, martial law is an imposition of military power over this emergency basis. So, all of that just means you're in the control by you're under control by the military, and that means that your branches are useless. So, what happens is the president takes over, and all legislation, execution, and judicial are removed. Your rights are removed. You can go to the next slide. And these are kind of the consequences of what happens in martial law. Martial law can be taken now any day because, like the video said, the new regulation that has started on January 1st. So if there's a terrorist attack, or if there's a big event, there's a big riot, a revolution, any sort of dramatic event happening in the United States, Obama can consider martial law at any moment. And what that would look like was kind of in the video when all the planes were falling down. They've already had that kind of training in Arizona, and it was the news tried to kind of like hiding it, but the public press, which this is fighting for, kind of brought it out. Like, I don't know if you guys have heard of WikiLeaks, which is another big resource where there was a terrorist accusation of the person who put up these files because there were military tactics and a lot of stuff that the military doesn't want other countries to know about, and martial law was in there, and it demonstrated the procedure in which they would take. At first, they would remove all kind of media, so the military would take over all the media, so you would be in surveillance, your phones, everything, which is pretty much already occurring. Then your rights are removed, so you could be arrested without trial since your judicial is removed, your legislation, so they could come to your house, they'll check up, they'll remove all your weaponry, even if it's concealed. After that, the military also takes over all kinds of resources, from food, supplies, and you're pretty much in a position where no other country wants to come along and help you out. So the resources are scarce, and people will start fighting for it. And what happens is that people in the higher class are going to have a higher time adapting to martial law because there's curfews now, there's a lot of regulations, there's going to be a red or blue dot on your mailbox, and that determines whether or not you're considered a terrorist or not. And this word terrorist really has a bigger meaning when people say, because according to this law, if you do not agree with the government, or if you state against it, whether it's public press, which public press is just you're not sort of like the media, you're not Fox, you're not any kind of news, you're just your own news writer. So if you start posting up things that you know, or you're trying to inform people of these kind of regulations and what you're afraid of, they could arrest you. And that's a huge problem, because that's saying there's these regulations that could occur, but no one can know about it. So they want us they want to keep it quiet for the same reason that they're afraid that there will be a revolution before the military even comes down, and that will create big commotion like here. So I just want to thank you for listening and stay informed, because there's a lot of things at school that people don't really teach us. So I would have never learned about martial law and ammunition, but yet again, there could be a martial law any day. And like they said, the terrorist attack, like I researched 9/11, and it really didn't seem like a terrorist attack. But I'll leave that for you guys to see.